Gauragraganya gana gocha goloruharam Gauranga gudatama gopyada kopa briksham Gopala gada ratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshi kavadam satatam namani Uttama adama kichuna bachila jachiha tileka kola Kahe premananda hemona gauranga hridaya dariya bola Bhaja gauranga kaha gauranga laha gaurangera namare bolo Bhaja gauranga kaha gauranga laha gaurangera namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoy Amara Pranare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoy Amara Pranare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Bolo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yeshaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bidana Parama Pumarta Tismai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kuryat Kripaya Jari Tadaiva Sampaya Pitva Rishi Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Bapahiman Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I want to thank everyone again for coming today. I'd like to just say a few words about something I speak about a lot, which is the nature of Vaishnava Sangha, because that's really what we want to create. I want to avoid that people are coming and just only taking notes to get some information. Well, that's a far out thing, he said. I hadn't heard that before. That's not our purpose. That's what you do in the university. Maybe that's what you do in Bhakti Shastri. It's not bad. But that's not our purpose of a Vaishnava Sangha. And a Vaishnava Sangha has three elements. It has the speaker, it has the listeners, and the third element is Krishna Katha. Of the two, the speaker or the listener, we often ask which is more important, and the devotees usually say the speaker is more important. But it's actually not true. If you contemplate the matter, you can see, to give an example, a couple of examples we often give, Srila Prabhupada, when he went to Paris on one occasion, the devotees had arranged a Pandal program, some program with a bunch of French students French students are very troublesome, aren't they, Chirananda Prabhu? So they were doing kirtan, and everything was good. Everybody was happy. And then they brought this huge Vyasa-san out, something like this thing. And Prabhupada sat down. And the students began to yell at Srila Prabhupada in French. And Prabhupada didn't know what they were saying. So he asked Yogeshwar Prabhu, what are they saying? And Yogeshwar Prabhu didn't want to tell him because it was very bad. They were saying very bad things about Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada anyway said, anyway, just do kirtan. So the most qualified speaker was there, but because the listeners weren't qualified, then nothing happened. But on the other hand, we've all experienced, even though we're millions of times less qualified than Srila Prabhupada, if we meet some new person and they're very interested in Krishna consciousness, then all of a sudden amazing things come out of our mouth that we hadn't even expected before because of that person's eagerness and sincerity. So in a Vaishnava Sangha, it's not that the speaker's in the center. That's not a Vaishnava Sangha. And that's a mistake that we've made in our society many times over the years, both on behalf of the speaker and on behalf of the listeners. But in a Vaishnava Sangha, what's in the center is Krishna. And the speaker is serving the Vaishnavas, the listeners, by speaking about Krishna. If I sat here and I told you some very romantic stories how I met my wife, it would be an offense to the Vaishnava Sangha. It would be an offense to the seat that we're sitting on. Because the Vaishnava Sangha is that Sangha where we keep Krishna in the center. And in the Vaishnava Sangha, everyone is treated with respect. It's something like when we take Jagannath Mahaprasad in Puri. And in Puri, when they take Jagannath Mahaprasad, everyone sits on the ground. No asan, because everyone's equal. Because when you have Jagannath Mahaprasad, it's just like having darshan of Jagannath. And when you come before God, everyone's equal. He doesn't think, oh, this is a sannyasi, this is a senior devotee, I should pay more attention to him. But he just looks to see who has devotion. And he doesn't care about someone's gender or someone's age or seniority. Everyone is considered to be equal. So similarly in a Vaishnava Sangha. So we'd like to try to have something like that for the next few days. But we have a problem. This is nicely described by Narahari Sarkar. Narahari Sarkar, if you don't know, he was the guru of Srila Lochan Das Thakur. And Narahari Sarkar also was the first biographer of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, long before Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami or Vrindavan Das Thakur ever started writing. Narahari Sarkar was writing songs about the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he's also written some very nice books. And in his Krishna Bhajanamrita, he's given a nice verse in the Mangalacharna, which describes our situation here today. Katakastu mahamurka siddhantan ariduskaran katam karyariti mrisha vitarkan ma krita buddha. He says that the problem here today, we want to hear some siddhantan ariduskaran, some very subtle siddhanta, but the problem is that Kataka, the speaker, Katakastu mahamurka, he's a great fool. So it's a big problem. So what do we do in that situation? Katam karyariti mrisha vitarkan ma krita buddha. We pray to all the Vaishnavas that you please bless us, that we can speak something for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, for the benefit of our society. My Guru Maharaj, he used to tell me, he said quite a few times, he said, we should work to help uphold the prestige of Prabhupada's society, Prabhupada's mission. And he said the best way to do that is to have nice Krishna Katha and nice Vaishnava dealings. This is a very, very important thing in our society. So yesterday at the end, I asked everyone for some reflections on what we spoke, and there were a few. I'd like to offer my own reflection on yesterday's subject. I was thinking more about it yesterday, and thinking about this wonderful verse, Hantaya Madhura Bala Haridasa Varyo Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparasa Pramoda, which is spoken by the gopis. to Krishna, or the gopis, they're glorifying Govardhan Hill. And they address him as Haridasa Varya. And I was mentioning something yesterday, how this verse is very important. This verse, directly or indirectly, Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam, directly or indirectly, this is referred to by practically all of our acharyas when they speak about Govardhan Hill. Directly they'll say the phrase Haridasa Varya, or indirectly they'll speak about Giriraj as a devotee. But what's very interesting about this verse is that, as I mentioned yesterday, it's spoken by the gopis. But another thing is interesting. How did they know that Giriraj is a devotee? We don't find that anywhere else in the Bhagavatam. Rather, we see in the Bhagavatam that all the Brijbasis, they considered Giriraj to be Krishna, to be like Lord Vishnu. But the gopis, in this verse, they're addressing Giriraj as Haridasa Varya. How is that? We were reading yesterday from the Garga Samhita, and there's an interesting statement there, that when that Ankura, that seed from the heart of Krishna came and landed on the ground, it said there that Gopi Vyuhasya Pashyatam. Very interesting language. Gopi Vyuhasya. You may know the word Vyuha from the Mahabharata. The Vyuha is a military formation. The Gopi Vyuhasya Pashyata. That when it came out of Krishna's heart, there was a witness, a Sakshi. And that witness was the gopis, who are all gathered there just like in a military formation, standing before Radha and Krishna. And they saw this thing. So this statement, Hantaya Madhura Bala Haridasa Varyo, is that better? Seems to perhaps support the statement of Garga Samhita, that the gopis, they were the witness to this fact that Giriraj came out of Krishna's heart. So they know that Giriraj, he's not just a devotee, but he's the best of devotees because he's a manifestation of Krishna's love, his personified love for Srimati Radharani. So yesterday we mentioned something, how we would like to say something today to answer some of the questions that we raised. In particular, how is it that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he comes here to Braj, he won't walk on Govardhan Hill. But when he goes to Jagannath Puri, he walks on the hill. And how is it that we understand that Madhavendra Puri, he walked on the hill, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wouldn't? Madhavendra Puri is the grand spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's the Kopa Briksha, the wish-fulfilling tree, who's the root of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, according to Kavi Kanarpur. Why is it that he walked on the hill? And why is it that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati chose to put his Bhajan Kutir on top of that Chatak Parvat in Puri? So for that discussion, we'd like to visit Jagannath Puri a little bit. And I have some slide presentation also that I'd like to talk a little bit. I'm not very expert with slides. I'm not used to that, so we'll see how that goes. Tomorrow I'd like to have, slides are nice for me though because we have so many pictures of the caves of Govardhan, so many pictures about Chatak Parvat that we weren't able to put in the magazine. So I was able to use some of these things for this here. Yeah, small pics. Go down. Those are all Mac files. Just go down. There you go. 1A. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Jagadananda Pandit, before Jagadananda, this is a picture of Chatak Parvat, part of Chatak Parvat in Jagannath Puri. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Jagadananda Pandit before Jagadananda went to Vrindavan, Mahaprabhu told him, Shigra asihata rahiha chirakao Govardhani nacha diha deki te gopala bolo Hare Krishna Hare Krishna said that Shigra Asiha, don't stay in Vrindavan for a long time. Just go there for a short time. Narahiha Chirakal, and you should return as soon as you can. And he told them, Govardhane Nachadiha Dekite Gopal. Don't climb Govardhan Hill to see Gopal. This is an instruction from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We don't walk on Govardhan Hill. So Srila Prabhupada, he comments in his purport, in his Amrita Prabha Bhashya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur advises that one should avoid remaining in Vrindavan for a very long time. As the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. If one stays in Vrindavan for many days, he may fail to maintain proper respect for its inhabitants. Just as a side note in this regard, because many of us are staying in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada, a number of times he told the devotees, don't mix with the Brijbasis. I couldn't really understand it so well. A few years ago, while we were doing research for this magazine, one of our friends at Govardhan suggested that we go meet some Brijbasis and ask them what their concept was of Giriraj. To put it very politely, I was very surprised what their conception was. They have some very unusual conceptions sometimes. And they also have some behavior which we might not understand. So better we keep a little distance from them, because we may make some offense to the Brijbasis. If we start becoming familiar, sometimes devotees, it's a sociological phenomena. We want to be accepted in whatever we're doing, and so we join Krishna consciousness. For most people in this room is probably a new thing. We weren't born and raised in a Vaishnava family, for the most part of us. And so we're trying to make up for that. We have to make friends. We want to be accepted in the society. We want to be cool. And so sometimes we think it's really a good thing if I make friends with the Brijbasis, or if I go to see different sadhus, then I'm really a cool person. I have a comment I'd like to make about that. Over the last 25 years or so, we've been making this magazine, Sri Krishna Kathamrita, and for that purpose, I've gone to see many, many different sadhus, many different Babajis at Radhakund and in Barsana, many different Gaudiya Math devotees, asking them for information, for our research, because we want to make a magazine to serve Srila Prabhupada. But one thing that just intuitively I wasn't comfortable with doing, I never went to go and hear from anybody. Rather, I would go to collect information. And later I came to understand something more about that, and we said a few words about this yesterday. Hearing is a very intensely personal thing. It's not just information collection. In the West, we think of like that today. You just Google, and you can get any information you want. But it wasn't like that previously. Trying to think of the name. One of the disciples, one of the leading disciples of Ramanujacharya once came to him and told him, Guru Maharaj, I'd like to understand, please explain to me the Charama Shloka in the Bhagavad-Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityagya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. And Ramanuja told this devotee, Quresh, who was very, very learned, an amazing scholar, and a leading disciple, and very, very surrendered, very, very pious. He told them, if you want to understand this, it'll take so many years, and you should serve, and like that. And he said, oh, Guru Maharaj, I don't know how long I'm going to live. So then Ramanuja told him, he said, okay, then you live for 1 year, you go for 1 year, just doing madhukari, without knowing where you're going to get your food. And after 1 year, then if you do that, then I'll explain this verse to you. This is traditional Vedic culture. It doesn't mean that today we have something better, because we have Google. Now it's easier to become Krishna conscious than it was 100 years ago or something, when those poor people didn't have Google. They couldn't research things. No, this information has to penetrate deep into the heart. So there has to be some exchange, there has to be some relationship for that to happen. So, Srila Prabhupada, he was speaking in this purport that if one stays in Vrindavan for many days, he may fail to maintain proper respect for its inhabitants. So sometimes we think it's really cool, I'll go to so many different sadhus and hear from so many different people, but the only thing that will happen is you'll become confused. And I'm just speaking in a purely Siddhantic, Shastric way, because Pranipat Pariprasna Seva, these three things are required if you want to hear properly. And if you just go to so many different people, I know devotees who go to people in different sampradayas who are very learned and they're very nice sadhus, and perhaps they're doing that to look very cool or to make friends and get people to appreciate them, that they're so open-minded. It's nice to be open-minded, and we should appreciate and respect and love all different Vaishnavas, all different persons. But who I hear from, that's a very, very particular thing. That means I should surrender to that person. I should give my heart to that person. Otherwise, I can't really collect anything from them. So Prabhupada says, if one stays in Vrindavan for many days, he may fail to maintain proper respect for its inhabitants. Therefore, those who have not attained the stage of spontaneous love for Krishna should not live in Vrindavan very long. It is better for them to make short visits. Just in regard to, in case someone feels really nervous about that, I remember, I can tell you a personal story. In 1993, I think it was, I was coming to India, and I was coming to Vrindavan. We made a new magazine. We were coming to Vrindavan to sell it, but there was a problem. I was going to be on the airplane on Govardhan Puja Day. So I asked my Guru Maharaj, what should I do? I'll be on the airplane. How can I worship Giriraj? And he told me, he said, you should have a fire sacrifice. You should do a big kirtan. You should cook a huge feast. You should invite all the devotees. You should distribute prasadam to everyone. I said, Guru Maharaj, I'm going to be on the airplane. How can I do that? And then he said, anyway, you're going to Vrindavan for service. So it's a different thing. If we're coming to Vrindavan, if we're staying in Vrindavan for service, we're not here on our own behalf. We're here in an authorized way on behalf of Guru and Krishna. So Prabhupada says, it is better for them to make short visits. One should also avoid climbing Govardhan Hill to see the Gopal deity. Since Govardhan Hill itself is identical with Gopal, one should not step on the hill or touch it with his feet. One may see Gopal when he goes elsewhere. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he strictly observed that when he came here to Vrindavan. But when he came to Puri, as we were mentioning the other day, there's this place called Gora Batsahi. Batsahi means the neighborhood where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was walking, where he was going every day. And on one occasion when Mahaprabhu was going through there, every morning he would go to take his bath. On his way back, he saw this hill. You can go to the next one also. These are a few photos. These pictures are taken in a wonderful, wonderful place in Jagannath Puri. One of the few, I'm sorry to say, quiet places left. This is just behind the Tota Gopinath temple. Maybe less than a 10-minute walk behind Tota Gopinath. There's a garbage dump just behind Tota Gopinath, which is kind of like a barrier. Most people don't brave the garbage dump, but if you go through the garbage dump, you'll find, wow, there's such a wonderful, quiet place. You can hear birds, and you can walk for at least 5 or 10 minutes without seeing anyone. It's a very, very nice thing. So Mahaprabhu, he was walking with all the devotees, going toward the Jagannath Mandir, and suddenly he started reciting this verse that we mentioned spoke by the gopis. Hantaya madhara bala haridasa varyo yad Rama Krishna charanas padasa pramoda manam tanoti sahagogana yastuyuryat paniyasuya vasakanda rakanda mulai. Of all the devotees, this Govardhan hill is the best. Oh, my friends, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram, as well as their calves, cows, and cowherd friends, with all kinds of necessities: water for drinking, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. In this way, the hill offers respect to the Lord, being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram. Govardhan Hill appears very jubilant. Whenever we tell this story, I always think of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati when he visited Alarnath Brahmagiri for the first time. After he'd taken sannyas, he came there with a group of disciples, and they were walking to the forest, about a 15-minute walk away from the Alarnath temple, and suddenly something happened. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta became mad, and he just bolted. He just started running all of a sudden and disappeared into the forest. And the devotees spent the whole day searching for him. Someday, if you come with us to Brahmagiri Alarnath, we'll take you to that place. There's a wonderful mango tree. It's been there for hundreds of years. And there's a nice mandap that the Gopinath temple, the Gopinath Gaudiya Mutt, has built there in honor of that occasion, because that's the place where they found Srila Bhaktisiddhanta with foam coming out of his mouth, unconscious, because he saw Krishna. And he became mad and went running after Krishna. So in a similar way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he saw this hill and he became mad. And he started running and chanting this verse. And at that time, the devotees were startled. They weren't expecting that. And they all started running after him after a moment. There was Srup Damodar Goswami, Jagadananda Pandit, Gadadhar Pandit, Ramai, Nandai, and Shankar Pandit. All the devotees were running after him. And there was Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati. They were going a little slower because they're a little old. And behind all of them, there was one devotee. His name was Bhagavan Acharya. And he was a little lame, so he couldn't go very fast. He was going slow. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was running with the speed of the wind. And then suddenly, he became stunned in ecstasy, and he lost all strength, and he fell down on the ground. Go to the next picture. And he lay there unconscious on that hill. And it said that blood and perspiration began to pour from every pore of his body, all over his skin, and he couldn't speak anything. After a few minutes, the devotees arrived there. And first there was Govinda, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's very loyal and devoted servant. And Govinda, he took a kamandalu, Mahaprabhu's kamandalu that he was carrying, and he sprinkled some water on the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That kamandalu is still there today in Jagannath Puri, in the Gambhira, covered with about 8 inches of sandalwood paste. And he sprinkled that water on Mahaprabhu, and then he took his Bhairyavesh, his external cloth, and he began fanning the body of Mahaprabhu. Then Srup Damodar Goswami and the other devotees arrived there, and when they saw the condition of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they all began to cry. And then very loudly, they began to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and they washed his body with cold water. So after a long time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly jumped up. Haribo! Haribo! And when that happened, all the devotees became ecstatic, and they also began chanting Hari, Hari. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked a little confused. Uti Mahaprabhu Vishmita iti uti chai. Jai deki te chai taha deki te na pai. Bolo Hare Krishna. Mahaprabhu became vismita. He became very, very bewildered. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he describes that in Jagannath Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 3 different states of consciousness. One was bhaya, external, and he would see the devotees and he would ask, "Oh, Jagadananda Jagai, how is my mother doing in Navadvip? Did you see her?" He would ask about different devotees, would speak about external type of things. And then there was another type of consciousness, is antar consciousness, is internal consciousness, where he would be laying unconscious on the ground, as he was in this pastime. And there was another type of consciousness, a third type, which is a mixture of the two. He wasn't exactly an external consciousness. He was still partly an internal consciousness, and sometimes he would become very confused. A very interesting topic. So, in this kind of consciousness, Uti Mahaprabhu, Uti means that he got up, he jumped up, Mahaprabhu jumped up, Jai Dikiti Chai, Taha Dikiti Napai. And he began looking around in a very confused way. And then suddenly, he recognized the devotees. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And then he said, "Where did you bring me?" He said, "I was at Govardhan Hill. I was seeing the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The pastimes of Krishna. But now I can't see them." Sometimes he would cry. And he would say, "What did you do? Where did you bring me?" We were having a reading in our home in Puri a few years ago from Anchalila, and one devotee asked a very good question. They said, "How is it that these devotees, Srup Damodar and Roy Ramananda, in the particular case of that pastime we were reading from, they're such exalted devotees, but they're bringing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu away from his ecstasy? And Mahaprabhu is becoming disturbed by it? How do we understand that?" Very nice question. And it's not directly answered in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I thought about that for a moment, and I told them, I said, well, first of all, we should understand. We should approach this subject with faith. Faith in Srup Damodar and Roy Ramananda. They're eternal associates of the Lord, in particular they're Lalita and Vishaka Sakis. So whatever they're doing is perfect. Whatever they're doing is meant to ultimately enhance the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in particular, it's meant to enhance Mahaprabhu's relishing of Radharani's mood. So what's happening in these pastimes, Mahaprabhu is falling in the ground in ecstasy, and he sees Krishna in Jagannath Vallabha Gardens. On one occasion, he could smell Krishna's body, and he fell unconscious, and he saw Krishna. He'd entered into the forest of Vrindavan, and the devotees began chanting, and they woke him up. They brought him back to external consciousness, and he said, "What did you do? Where did you bring me?" Why did they do that? To understand that, in the language of my revered spiritual master, he used to say, if you want to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you must understand Srimati Radharani. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to understand him, it doesn't mean, oh, I understand, I'm a vegetarian, and I believe in reincarnation, so I understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not like that. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a crest jewel of Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. It's the topmost thing. So he's in the mood of Radha. And Srimati Radharani, what is her mood? Her mood of ecstasy, she wants to see Krishna. But Krishna, our spiritual master described that there's a dhara, a prema dhara, a river of divine love, which goes through Braj. And just as every river has two tattas, or two embankments, the Sambhog Tata and the Vipralamba Tata, the embankment of union and the embankment of separation, that river of love and Braj also goes like that. Otherwise, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport we were just reading, familiarity breeds contempt. If there's always union, then love may die. So there's also separation. And Srimati Radharani, she's full of those feelings of separation. Even we know at near Barsana, in what's the kunda? The Prem Sarovar. Srimati Radharani was sitting on the lap of Krishna. But she thought Krishna wasn't present. That's another story. Many of you probably know. And in separation, she began crying from Krishna. Crying for Krishna. So this is Srimati Radharani's mood. And if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to taste that, he has to taste that separation. And that separation after union is very, very poignant and very, very intense. So in effect, what Swarup Damodar Goswami and Roy Ramananda and the other devotees are doing, they're enhancing the love of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They're enhancing the intensity of it so many, many times over. Finally, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he sees Krishna. He's in so much ecstasy. And then the devotees, and if they take that away from him, so that he can understand the feelings of Radharani when Krishna left Braj. Lalita and Visakha, they understand that better than anyone. So this was our reply to that. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, what did you do? He said, I was on Govardhan Hill. I went there to see if Krishna was herding his cows, and I saw Krishna there playing his flute. And then he says a very interesting thing. Venunada Suni Aila Radha Thakurani Sabasaki Gana Sange Korea Sajjani Bolo Hare Krishna. He said, I could hear the sound of Krishna's flute. And then I saw Srimati Radharani and all the gopis come there. And Radha Lana Krishna Pravishela Kandareti. They went inside of a cave, Radha and Krishna. And Saki Gana Kohi More Fula Utaite. He says a very interesting thing. He says, Radha and Krishna went in the cave. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking. He's Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. He's a combined form of Radha and Krishna. But in this pastime, he's seeing Radha and Krishna separate from himself. To understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not such a simple thing. He's Bhakta Rup. Sometimes we compare him to a 16-year-old Gurukuli boy. If you take a 16-year-old Gurukuli boy and you give him the key to Govinda's restaurant, and you tell him you have as long as you want in there, you can eat anything you want, the 16-year-old boy is going to be very, very happy, isn't it? So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is something like that. He's Krishna. But now, for the first time, he's gotten to go into Govinda's restaurant and relish whatever he wants. Because previously, he always has the title, he's Bhagavan. He's Priti Vishray, the supreme object of love. But now he can relish the Priti Ashray, the taste of the abode of love. He can relish what it's like to be a devotee. And so he doesn't only relish the mood of Radha, he also relishes the mood of so many devotees. Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Lord Balaram, Lord Shiva, different gopis, the queens of Dwarka. He relishes the mood of so many different devotees because he never got a chance to taste that before. Especially in Jagannath Puri, and especially in his later years, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that it was there that he fulfilled his three desires. To taste the nature of Radharani's love, what is it that she sees in him, and what is the ecstasy that she experiences. That was only fulfilled. It was not fulfilled in Navadvip. It was not fulfilled even here in Vrindavan. But it was fulfilled in Jagannath Puri. And that's also one of the reasons why he had to take sannyas. Because to take sannyas, he had to taste Radha Bhav. But what is the nature of Radha Bhav? Krishna says in the Gita, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuru nandana. Yeah, the nature of this love is very one-pointed. You shouldn't be bahusaka hyanantascha, many multi-branched. But Krishna, he's multi-branched. He's a supreme multi-branched person in the whole universe. Because he reciprocates with all the devotees. He reciprocates with all the devotees in ISKCON and the devotees in the Gaudiya Mata and the Babajis and all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas and all the Sri Vaishnavas and the Madhva Vaishnavas and the Vallabha Vaishnavas and all the Hindus and all the Muslims and all the Christians, and he reciprocates with everyone. But the gopis, they're vyavasayatmika buddhi. They're one-pointed. And especially Srimati Radharani. So when he wanted to taste that love, he also had to become one-pointed. And that's why he left his mother. He left his wife. He left all of his friends in Navadvip, because to taste Radha Bhav, it meant he had to become a kantik. He left Navadvip and he came to Jagannath Puri, to the Gambhira. And there he was able to relish that one-pointed devotion of Radha. But in this pastime, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is seeing Radha, and he's seeing Krishna, and he's seeing the gopis. What is his mood in this pastime? It's a very, very deep and significant thing. This verse describes that Radha Lana Krishna Pravishila Kandarate Sakigana Kohe More Fula Utaite. That Radha and Krishna entered a cave. I saw them. And then at that time, Sakigana Kohe More Fula Utaite. The gopis came and they put me to work. They gave me a job. They said, oh, you should pick some flowers. And he says, then Hena Kale, just at that time, Tumi Saba, Kolahala Kaila, all of you started making this noise. What was the noise they were making? It was their Prema Sankirtan, the Kirtan of Srup Damodar and Roy Ramananda and the devotees. It's not a noise. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, it's like a noise. Because you took me away. And you brought me to this place. Where is Govardhan? Where is Krishna? Where is Radharani? Please, let's analyze this very deeply. In his commentary in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that there are 3 different stages of bhakti: abhyasa, manana, and smarana. Krishna says in the Gita, abhyasa yoga yuktena. You should practice yoga. Abhyasa means to practice. So we're doing it over and over again in a mechanical kind of way. But something happens after a while. Our heart becomes a little purified. And then we can come to the next platform, which is manana. And in the platform of manana, we can begin to think, why am I sweeping the temple? Before, when I was sweeping the temple, I was just thinking about my old girlfriend and a movie that I saw before I joined. But now, after some time, my heart's a little more purified. And my senses calm down, my mind calms down, and I can start thinking, why am I doing this? Oh, because Srila Prabhupada wanted the temple to be very clean. Because it's for Sri Sri Radhasham Sundar. Because it's for all the new people who come to the temple. It should be like Vaikuntha. It should be such a wonderful, clean place. This is why I'm doing this. And then Vishwanath says, when you come to the platform of manana, contemplation, thinking about something, it's not enough just to put something in cruise control and just collect information and know how to answer tests. Lakshmi Moni Mataji told me a very interesting thing. She said she was feeling a little frustrated with the Bhakti Shastri program, which is a very wonderful program Srila Prabhupada wanted. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta one. And I know so many devotees who've gotten great inspiration from that. It's a very highly recommended program. But it depends on how we approach it, like everything. And she told me that now there are so many professional students who are coming. And they know how to pass a test. They know how to cram and collect the information so they can pass the test, but they don't really understand anything. They're not really imbibing anything. And she's feeling a little frustrated from that. So it's not enough just a platform of abhyasa. We have to come to the platform of manana. We should contemplate, what is the meaning of these things? And so many places, our acharyas have said things in an indirect way. But if we just take the external meaning, we'll miss that. It requires some subtlety, and that subtlety comes through service. Shushusho Shadadana Shavasudeva Katari Sham Mahat Seva Vipra. When we serve Krishna's dear devotee, and we get some ruchi, then that subtlety comes to us, and we can go deep in these things. So, what does this pastime mean? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna, but now he's seeing Radha and Krishna separate. Sometimes he's in the mood of a gopi, but today, on this pastime, he's seeing the gopis, and the gopis are coming to him and saying, hey, you should pick flowers and help us. Who picks flowers and helps the gopis? The manjaris. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in that mood of an assistant to the gopis. And he was rendering service. And in that mood, Hantaya Madhura Bala Haridasa Varyo. The gopis, they see Giriraj as a devotee. And in that mood, they walk on Giri Govardhan. If they didn't see him as a devotee, how could they walk on Govardhan Hill? How could they meet? How could Srimati Radharani meet with Krishna on Govardhan Hill if she saw Giriraj as Krishna? But we see in the Lita Madhav, Rupa Goswami, he describes in the 4th act, Unmadana Radha, how Radha became mad when Krishna left Vrindavan. And she became a mad woman. And Lalita became very concerned. And she said, hey Radhe, to pacify, she said, you know Krishna, he's a very tricky fellow. Many times he's hid himself from you. Maybe just now he's hiding somewhere here in Braj. You should look for him. Radharani said, yes. And she went looking. And then suddenly she said, ha, there's Krishna. And what did she point at? She pointed at Govardhan Hill. Vidure kangsare mukitita sikandavalir aso pura gorangibi Kalita parirambo vilasati nakanto yam sanke surapati dhanadama maduras tadile kalhari girim avalambe jaladara. She said, there, Krishna with a peacock feather on his head and his pitambara dhoti is there, embraced by some gopi. But then she paused and said, oh, actually, it's not Krishna. It's just a rainbow on top of Govardhan Hill and some bolt of lightning, which looks like his yellow dhoti, and Govardhan Hill, which is a little blackish in places. She saw Govardhan Hill as Krishna. In that mood, Srimati Radharani is not going to walk on Govardhan Hill. But when she meets with Krishna on Govardhan, then of course she walks on Govardhan Hill. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he came here to Vrindavan, he was in a particular mood of separation. He was also in the mood of separation in Puri, but a different kind of separation, which is known as Maranakya Mahabhav, or this union and separation together in a kind of divine madness. And here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he saw Giriraj in the mood of separation, the mood of Radha, feeling separation from Krishna. He saw Giriraj as Krishna, and he wouldn't walk on him. But when he went to Jagannath Puri, and he saw Chatak Parvat, then in that mood, you can go to the next slide, that's okay. He saw Govardhan Hill there as a devotee, and he was reciting his verse, Hantaya Madhura Bala Haridasa Varyo. And in the mood of a devotee, serving the gopis and manjari, the mood of a manjari, he began doing that service. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you can go down a few slides. In the end of his days, he was staying there in Jagannath Puri. Go down to the next picture. And he made his bhajan kutir there. This is a place still on top of the hill today. And although Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left this world in the Bhagavad Gaudiya Mutt in Kolkata, his last days were spent in Jagannath Puri, and he only spent a few days in Kolkata before he left this world. He was staying here at this place, and he was absorbed in Govardhan Leela. And he was having the devotees every day recite these prayers, the Govardhan Basa Prarthana Dasakam of Raghunath Das Goswami, which ends in the refrain each time that Nija Nikata Nibasam Dehi Govardhana Tvam. O Giriraj, please grant me residence near you. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's senior disciple, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he once commented why he was praying like that. He said, because, why doesn't he pray to go to Radhakund at the end of his life? Why does he pray to go to Govardhan? He said, because we keep a little distance between ourselves and the object of our worship. And Radhakund, that is the place, it's the topmost place. So we stay a little bit back by Govardhan Hill where we can render some service. Nija Nikata Nibasam, Dehi Govardhana Tvam. You can go down. The Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he made his bhajan kuta. This is his bed, one of the few things still left there from him. And go ahead and go down. He established deities there. Sri Vinod Madhav. His family deities, which are worshipped by his father in Choti Mangalpur, near to Kendrapur and Orissa, are Sri Radha Madhav. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sang a famous song, wrote a famous song about them, Jai Radha Madhav, Kunja Bihari. So when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati established deities there at Chatak Parvat, he established the deities of Vinod Madhav. And he also established deities, go back, of Gaur Gadadhar. Because this is the place of Gadadhar. When we go to Chatak Parvat, we like to see the tamarind trees. There's a few tamarind trees on top of the hill there. And we remember, and they're very old trees, some of them. They might even be 500 years old. And that's very special because we know from Chaitanya Charitamrita that sometimes Gadadhar Pandit was taking those tamarind leaves and cooking different preparations for Tota Gopinath with those things. So this is a place of Gaur Gadadhar. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was the editor of the Gaudiya magazine. And in one article, which is dated the 18th of April, 1936, in Bengali, there was some very interesting comments. And from the context of things, it's very clear that the author of the article, first of all, was not Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, although it was under his watchful glance. But it was also very, very clear that they were writing based on things they'd heard from him. So practically the article is from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And he says there, the worship of Sri Krishna by Srimati Radharani is a real Anukul Krishnanu Shilana. Citing the 11th verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Favorable service to Krishna. And he says, for some devotees, Kamalanayana. Who's Kamalanayana? He's also known as Chakadola, Kaliya, lotus-eyed Jagannath. For some devotees, Kamalanayana, lotus-eyed Lord Jagannath, is residing at the seashore. There, to the Gaudiya devotees, Jagannath is a deity of Sambandha, transcendental relationship. Shri Shamasundar Madan Mohan. Why does he say that? Because in the temple of Jagannath, the Vijay Vigraha, the Utsava Vigraha, the festival deity who accepts the services on behalf of Jagannath is Madan Mohan. So Madan Mohan is a deity of Sambandha. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said he still goes on the Chandan Yatra as Madan Mohan in his Vijay Vigraha form. And on the other side of Chatak Parvat Hill in Puri, he's a deity of Prayojan, the ultimate goal of life, Lord Gopinath, or Tota Gopinath. The word Tota in Oriya language means a garden. It was originally the full Tota, or the flower garden of Jambeshwar Mahadev, one of the most prominent deities of Lord Shiva in Jagannath Puri. That place was the flower garden for that deity. And so that deity of Gopinath, who was discovered in that place by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and given to Gadadhar Pandit, it's a long story. that deity became known as Tota Gopinath. Sri Sri Radha Lalita Tota Gopinath. They also discovered deities there of Radha and Lalita. And that's another long discussion. Actually, if the Vaishnavas bless us, we're working on a book about Tota Gopinath. It's another subject. So, he said that in the temple of Srimati Radharani at Chatak Parvat, he said, we're making a temple at Chatak Parvat for Srimati Radharani. The Krishna will appear as a deity of Abhideya, Lord Govinda, who's a beloved of Srila Rupa Goswami. The maidservants of Sri Radha, in order to receive the service of Radharani and to enhance the pleasure of union between Radha and Govinda, always reside with the divine couple. On the banks of Radha Kund, there are various kunjas, groves of the Sakis. Similarly, those gopis have their kunjas here at Chatak Parvat as well. And then he says some very philosophical thing. Please fasten your safety belt. For a few minutes, we'll survive, I think. There are different moods amongst the followers of the Lord. There are those who think of themselves as devotees. Bhakta Abhiman. This is a phrase that he uses in the Bengali. Those persons who are Bhakta Abhiman, who have the Abhiman, the attitude, I'm a devotee, those persons are Bhajan Kori. They're performers of bhajan. Then there are other persons who accept the position and mood of being an Acharya. Acharya Abhiman. Those devotees can also be called Acharya Das Abhiman, or the attitude of being a servant of the Acharya. Not that they're thinking, I'm an Acharya, I'm a big person, but they're thinking, I'm a servant of the Acharyas. The consideration or mood of a Bhajan Kori, the Bhajan Kori is a Bhakta Abhiman devotee, right? Their consideration is Dayara Prarti. I'm a candidate for mercy. While the consideration of an Acharya or a servant of the Acharya is a little different. Their consideration is Ami Jibe Daya Koriya Bhagavanera Priti Vidana Koriba. I'll please the Lord by being compassionate to the living entities. There are these two prominent moods. One is those devotees who have this Bhakta Abhiman, the attitude of being a devotee, and they're Bhajan Kori, they're wanting to do bhajan, and they consider themselves to be the objects of mercy. And then the second attitude is those persons who have the attitude of Acharya Das Abhiman, or servants of the Acharyas, and their mood is to give mercy to the fallen living entities. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, although both of these considerations are meant to please the senses of Krishna, still one is predominated with Madhurya Bhav, a mood of sweetness, while the other is imbued with Udarja Bhav, a mood of kindness and mercy. And then he says, this is such a work of genius, this article. He's speaking things which, strictly speaking, you won't find in Shastra. Strictly speaking, you won't find from our acharyas. But he's speaking from his realization, and he's shining a light on an aspect of bhakti that we might not have considered before. He says, although they are Vishai Vigraha, the objects of love, right? Vishai Vigraha is a position, or is a phrase our acharyas generally use for Krishna. He's Vishai Vigraha. He's Bhagavan. Here, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, although they are Vishai Vigraha, the objects of love, still Lord Chaitanya and Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, in the mood of Ashraya Vigraha, the abode of love, didn't climb on Govardhan. Now, you may be a little confused by that. How is it Rupa and Sanatana Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are Vishai Vigraha? They're Vishai Vigraha for us. They're the worshipable personalities for us. But in the mood of Ashraya Vigraha, in the mood of devotees, they wouldn't climb on Govardhan Hill. He says, Srila Madhavendra Puri, however, in the mood of an acharya, climbed on Govardhan in order to follow Gopal's order to render services to him. You can press the button. So here's a nice picture of Madhavendra Puri. And you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's very clear. It says there that when Gopal appeared to Madhavendra Puri, he said, I'm hidden on top of the hill. You should come here to get me, bring the devotees, and build a temple for me on top of the hill. Madhavendra Puri had to walk on Govardhan Hill. Go down to the next picture. There's some nice photos we've gotten. This is the Gopal Mandir on top of Govardhan Hill. There's a few photos of it. You can go down. Which was established by Madhavendra Puri. There's another picture also. Didn't leave it there. So he says that Madhavendra Puri, in the mood of this Acharya Das Abhiman, a servant of the Acharyas, whose mood is to help the fallen conditioned souls, in that mood, Madhavendra Puri walked on Govardhan Hill in order to follow Gopal's order to render services to him. On Chatak Parvat in Puri, temples have been established for the predecessor acharyas. Go back. You can go back up a little bit. There's a picture, also in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Bhajan Kuti right here, of Srila Vyasadeva and Madhavendra Puri and Madhvacharya, who established there these deities on the order of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to show, they're on top of the hill, but the deities of Vinod Madhav, who apparently Srila Bhaktisiddhanta considered to be like Radha Govinda, the deities of Radha Vinod, they're established on the bottom of the hill. And higher than the deities of Radha Vinod are the deities of Vyasadeva and Madhvacharya, because they're in this mood of Acharya Das Abhiman, to serve the Acharyas by helping the conditioned souls, to render service to Krishna. And for that purpose, they're staying on top of the hill. So he says, on Chatak Parvat, temples have been established for the predecessor Acharyas. The current Acharyas and their assistants also climb on the hill with the mood of being servants of the predecessor Acharyas. He says, is it correct to build a temple on Chatak Parvat, the place that Lord Chaitanya considered to be Govardhan? And the article goes on to answer this question by stating that on the 17th of April, 1936, while at the temple of Chatak Parvat, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told the devotees that Radha Kund is very close to Govardhan. And we come here to get inspired by the remembrance of Radha Kund. Not to associate directly with Radha Kund, but to associate with that remembrance. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta continued while explaining to the devotees that Krishna says that worship of his devotees is better than worship of he himself. And he said there, the temple of Srimati Radharani, who is the topmost form of Ashraya Vigraha, will be built on the highest platform of that Chatak Parvat area. Shri Varshabhanavi will reside there along with her dear associates. So if you go to this Bhajan Kutir today, we don't see a deity as Srimati Radharani. I don't know. I spoke to some of the older devotees there in the mutt, and they don't remember this far back. I don't know if we can ever find out today what was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta unable, did he leave this world before he was able to fulfill his desire? Or perhaps he did fulfill his desire, but in a way that's not obvious to the external eye. And that his Bhajan Kutir is actually the temple of Srimati Radharani, the temple of the Supreme Ashraya Vigraha, who's doing the service of preaching and helping the conditioned souls. And there in that temple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says that Sri Varshabhanavi, Srimati Radharani, and Varshabhanavi is also a name of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. There, Varshabhanavi will reside along with her dear associates who are rendering service. He says the temples of the personalities of Ashraya Vigraha, the abode of love, should be bigger and more beautiful than the temples of the Vishai Vigraha. Object of love. It's a little technical. Try to understand what he's saying. It's so beautiful. The temples of the devotees who are serving, those temples should be bigger than the temple of Krishna. This is the mood of Govardhan. This is the mood of Chatak Parvat, he's saying in essence. For this reason, the Gaur Gadadhar temple is established a little lower on the side of Chatak Parvat, while the place for Vyasadeva and Madhvacharya are situated in a little upper position from the main temple place. He said Chatak Parvat is the place of Srimati Radhika and her dear Sakhi Manjaris. We came here to get inspired by this place of the noon pastimes of Srimati Radharani. So, many things happen at that place, Chatak Parvat. We've taken many, many devotees there over the years. And I like to tell them when we go there that welcome home. Because this is our home. And devotees don't really usually understand what we mean by that. And I tell them that just as in the Greek understanding is the Alpha and the Omega. Alpha and the Omega means the beginning and the end. So this place also is the beginning and the end in different ways. The temple of Tota Gopinath, Shriman Rasa Rasadam Bivam, Sivata Tatastita, Karshan Veniswanar Gopya, Gopinatha Shriyestuna. That's where it all began. Gopinath Leela is the beginning of Gaura Leela. Because Krishna was blowing on his flute, and the gopis came running to Krishna. They gave up everything. Napariyaham niravajyasam yujam swasadu kicham vibudaya sapi japa. And Krishna said, to repay my debt to them, they ran in the middle of the night to come to me. I also have to run in the middle of the night. I also have to give up everything. So he came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the temple of Gopinath is the beginning. And the temple of Gopinath, which is there at Chatak Parvat, and the temple of Tota Gopinath is also the ending. Because it's there that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered into the deity of Tota Gopinath. It doesn't get any better than that. We like to tell devotees when you have darshan of Gopinath, you're having sakshat darshan, direct darshan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he entered into the form of Gopinath. So that's the beginning and the end. But it's also the beginning and the end in another way. It's the end, because it was there that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur finished his manifest pastimes. But it's also the beginning. In another way, we know that in late 1936, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was staying there. You can go down a few pictures. And there they observed, go back up one. Go up. Two. Down two or three. Next picture, yes, this one, stop. And they had, this is a picture actually from the Bagh Bazar Gaudiya Math, very old photo, rare picture, of Govardhan Puja. You can't see so well, I'm sorry. But so many different articles. Have any of you been to the Purushottam Mutt in Jagannath Puri? Raise your hand. A few of you have been there. So that year, for Govardhan Puja, just a little before he passed away from this world, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told the devotees, we want to have a very, very big Govardhan Puja this year. And they offered so many items. The items filled the whole area from the road all the way up to the top of the hill. That's must be like, I don't know, perhaps at least 1 square kilometer or something, a huge area. They made this huge, huge Govardhan Puja there. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was staying there. We also wrote an article called Govardhan Hill in the Last Days of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And many fascinating things. Just before he left this world, before he went to Puri, he came here to Braj. And according to a 1936 article in the Gaudiya magazine, he inaugurated a temple, a place of worship here at Govardhan. No one today knows where that place is at. It seems to have been lost. Perhaps there was some court case or something, but we don't know that property today. And then on the 24th of October, he sent his disciple, Bhakti Saranga Prabhu to England, and he gave him, sometimes devotees, they question, are Dwarka Shilas bona fide? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati gave him three things. He gave him a Dwarka Shila, he gave him a Shalagram Shila, and he gave him a Govardhan Shila. And told him, you go to England with this thing. So again, Govardhan was very prominent. And then he went to Jagannath Puri, and we spoke something about his last days there and how he was absorbed in hearing these prayers to Govardhan Hill. And it was during this last visit of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to Chatak Parvat, you can go down one picture. It was during his last days there, no, you're going that picture, that he had some correspondence. He exchanged letters with one of his little-known Grihastha disciples. And it was an exchange that later would become to be understood to be very significant. Our Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he described this exchange in a lecture that he gave on the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He said, in 1936, he said, today is the 9th of December, 1968. He spoke this lecture in Los Angeles. That means 32 years ago. In Bombay, I was then doing some business. All of a sudden, between the 9th and 10th of December, Guru Maharaj was a little indisposed. He was staying at Jagannath Puri on the seashore at Chatak Parvat. So I wrote him a letter. My dear master, you're a brahmachari. You can go down one picture. You're a brahmachari, and you see the circle around this devotee on the right with the handsome mustache. This is Srila Prabhupada. And in the center with a turban is Ban Maharaj. When he returned from England from his preaching tour, Srila Prabhupada and some of his other godbrothers, they went to greet him there. And so this is Srila Prabhupada, what he must have looked like at this time when he exchanged his letters with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was a Grihastha. So Prabhupada wrote him, he said, I'm a householder. Your brahmachari and sannyasi disciples, they can render you direct service. But I'm a Grihastha, I can't live with you. I can't serve you nicely. How can I serve you? And Srila Prabhupada said, his reply was dated 13th December, 1936. And in that letter he wrote, my dear such and such, I'm very glad to receive your letter. And at that time, in that letter, which is the last letter Srila Prabhupada received from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, it was the last exchange he had with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. It was the final instructions he got from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told him, I think you should try to push our movement in English. And then he said something which really provoked my mind. He said, that will do good to you, and it will do good to the people who will help you. So there, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, on the 13th of December, 1936, he predicted all of us. He did. It'll be good for all of you, who help Srila Prabhupada. He had that vision. So in that sense, for me, this is our beginning. We were all predicted there. And this is also the end. Srila Prabhupada continued, I'll read a little more from his lecture. He said, that will do good to you and to the people who will help you. That was his last instruction. And then in 1936, on the 31st of December, that means just a fortnight after writing this letter, he passed away. So it's also, in one sense, it's the beginning and the end. It's the beginning for us in this sense, and it's also the end in another sense. Because at the end of Srila Prabhupada's manifest pastimes here in this world, Prabhupada was here in Vrindavan. Prabhupada had established his last temple in Bhubaneswar, and he put his disciple Bhagavat Prabhu, who was a brahmachari at the time, in charge of the temple. And he sent his sannyasi disciple, Gaur-Govinda Maharaj, there. And the devotees were staying in a very simple way. And when they heard that Srila Prabhupada was leaving this world, Gaur-Govinda Maharaj, he came here to Vrindavan to see Srila Prabhupada, and he brought some water from Shankarvapi, which is a well in Bhubaneswar, which was made by the Trishula, the trident of Lord Shiva, and it's supposed to be very good for health. He brought Srila Prabhupada that water and also some Jagannath Mahaprasad. And he stayed here for some days, and then he went back to Bhubaneswar so that Bhagavat could come here. And then when Bhagavat came here, he was here for a few days. Srila Prabhupada left this world. And the devotees in Bhubaneswar got a message, and Bhagavat Prabhu came back quickly. And the devotees then, they decided they should have a very grand Tirobhav Mahotsav, or disappearance festival for Srila Prabhupada. And where did they do that at? They went to the Purushottam Mutt, the Chetak Parvat in Jagannath Puri. And they invited all the different Gaudiya Mutt devotees, all the different acharyas, and they served everyone prasadam, they did kirtan, and the devotees, they cried in separation from Srila Prabhupada. So I like to think in this way, that this place is the Alpha and the Omega, it's the beginning and the end of Gopinath and Mahaprabhu, and also the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. It's a place which is the beginning of all of us, and is also the end. When Srila Prabhupada, the devotees had the disappearance festival there in that place. So these are some thoughts about Giriraj Govardhan. I was also hoping to go on and say something about Gunjamala. Maybe we'll do something of that tomorrow. Tomorrow I have 2 slideshows I'd like to show you. Go to the next picture. It's a very nice picture. Srila Prabhupada, one up. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said this would be do good for you and for all those persons who help you. And so we see all of Srila Prabhupada's followers and disciples and now grand disciples. And this is Srila Prabhupada. Isn't this here in Vrindavan? Yes. This is Srila Prabhupada here in Krishna Balar Mandir here in Vrindavan. So Giriraj Govardhan can be understood in different ways. Certainly he's Krishna. He's Vishnu Tattva. And some devotees like to worship him that way. And that's perfectly fine. It's very nice. But other devotees, they like to worship him as a devotee. It's a little more of a subtle topic, a little more of a difficult thing to understand. It's not so hard to understand, well, he's got a flute and a peacock feather, he must be God. Right? But how do we understand Giriraj as a devotee? So we made this magazine, which the press told me today they finished printing and they're binding right now and they're going to send tomorrow morning. So if all goes well, we'll have copies of this tomorrow. It's a very special thing for me. We've been working on this for over 25 years. This magazine we made is just all about Giriraj as a devotee. And something a little bit about Giriraj as Krishna, but it focuses on Giriraj as a devotee and how we can understand that. And one of the most fascinating aspects of that, for me, is to understand this point about Chetak Parvat, or Govardhan Hill, in Jagannath Puri, and the mood of the devotees there, and why Madhavendra Puri walked on the hill for service, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, why he built his Bhajan Kuti there on top of the hill, because he wanted to make a temple for Srimati Radharani, and for her assistants, he says her Sakhi Manjaris, who are doing some service, and then a little lower is a temple of Gaur Gadadhar and Vinod Madhav. So we'll stop there. I think this is a lot to digest for everybody. I hope you don't get stomach aches. If you have some reflections or thoughts about some of this, it might help you to digest things a little better. If anybody has any thoughts about these topics, something you liked, something that hopefully kept you awake from sleeping during the Kakata. Is there any reflections from anybody? Prabhuji? Full means flower, but full also means bent or something like banga? No. So what is the meaning of it?
Fruta is in Korea language, it is called flower garden.
Yeah, it was a full tota.
What is the meaning of fruta?
Acha. So tota also means like banga. that bent, that he's sitting.
Yeah.
Acha, acha, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. It was very, very nice. Anything else from anybody, Prabhuji?
I just wanted to know regarding the identity of Giriraj as a devotee. Sometimes we see Giriraj is worshipped as Bhagavan and Balaram also.
I have to speak about that tomorrow. It's a very big subject and a very important subject. I'd like to really, you'll be here tomorrow? I'd like to focus some more time on that tomorrow. It's going to be a little hard. Maybe I won't speak so much about the caves, but we'll show some pictures of the caves. The caves, anyway, you can see the katha, that there's some different stories. Some of the stories probably some of you already know. The story of Abhiram Thakur and how he was in a cave in Govardhan, and a few different stories like that. But more important, I think, is this katha about the Balaram and Radharani Shilas, and also a very interesting katha is this thing about the Gunjamala, which is a very interesting subject. So if you don't mind, I'll say something about that tomorrow. And we have some interesting photos about that also. You'll see. Anything else from anybody? These are very, I have to apologize. I'm afraid I'm sitting here in front of so many of my Guru Janas, Nagapatni Mataji and Karta Mataji and Maharaj and so many senior devotees. And honestly, I feel like a great fool speaking such a high thing. There's a saying in Oriya, maybe you know this saying, that someone has a small mouth, but they're saying something very big. So I'm like that today. I beg apology, but I'm trying to remember the instruction from my Guru Maharaj. And he said that we should work to help uphold the prestige of Prabhupada's mission. We should have nice Krishna Katha. And he said we should show, he said because if we have nice Krishna Katha, then people won't go other places. They'll stay here. This is also why Burijan Prabhu and Sachinanda Maharaj, Jagatarni Mataji, they've made this wonderful Govardhan retreat. And also here in Vrindavan, I know so many devotees are speaking very wonderful kathas because this is Vrindavan. We could have something a little more, and we should have something a little more to help uphold the prestige of Prabhupada's mission. So please forgive me if I'm speaking over my head. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhakta-binda ki, Gaur Premanande, Vanchakalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo.